Welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. We believe life is about how we react. Hey, welcome back to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. My name is Sean. I'm so glad you're listening today. Kyle, I've got to tell you something. It just popped up on my phone, and I use a Mac, so it also pops up on my computer, but I just got a text right before hitting record. I assume everybody gets them, but do you get random texts from numbers that aren't saved that are like, hey, old friend, I miss you. Let's hang out soon. Or, I don't know.
Like, hey, it was nice to talk to you last Tuesday. What's going on?
Yeah. But it's like scammy. Right. You have no idea who they are. There's, maybe they send you a picture. And at least the ones I get, they're always, women that are drop dead gorgeous and kind of scantily clad.
Yeah. All right.
Pose or clothing, like nothing real, right? So I'm like, all right, these are obviously fake or scammy or something's up. All right, well, I just got one. And it reads, you dropped your underwear at my house. When are you coming to get it?
Oh my God.
That's it. I have no idea who this number is. I can almost guarantee you if I engage in a conversation, it'll be a picture of somebody I would never leave my underwear with. So it's like, what's the angle?
Yeah.
Like, are they hoping I somehow say, oh, my bad, here's my credit card number? Like, what's the objective here?
Yeah, no. So have you have like engaged before then?
Every now and then. The first couple of times it was more of a curiosity.
Yeah,
like,
right.
I don't know who you are. And then every now and then it's more of a, I'm just going to be stupid or funny or rude. Like I have straight, I don't remember all of them, but there's some that talk about, a friendship coming to an end or whatever. Or they will say, oh, I miss you. We were best friends back in high school, blah, blah, blah. And I just vomit cuss words. Like, they don't even make sense, but like every third word is a cuss word, and I'm just so angry at them, and I'm like, it's not true, and again, it's ridiculous.
That's very immature, Sean.
Typically, I don't get a response to those.
Right.
What if someday we find out these people know us? Like, we really were best friends in high school.
That's going to be embarrassing for you.
Enough about these scammy fake numbers or people. Kyle, I know you got a letter in the mail.
Yeah.
I haven't read it all. But tell our listeners.
So it's an update on my DMV situation. So I was supposed to...
Surprise.
I was supposed to schedule a meeting to take my driving test, to get this new designation on my license for hand controls. So they're like, hey, call this number and schedule your test by this date. And they gave me a deadline. So in the meantime, my driver's school person scheduled the appointment with the DMV. So I didn't do any of that stuff. And it's on the calendar. I got a letter in the mail confirming that it's all good and everything. And then last week, I got a letter that said, your license will be revoked on February 20th because you failed to meet the deadline that we told you that you needed to schedule your appointment. And
you're not playing around.
I know. Well, and it was not only for driving, but it'll be revoked for all ID purposes too. So like, I won't even be able to use my ID.
Like you're not a real human.
Right. Yeah. Like
you're fake.
Exactly.
Fake person.
They're going to commandeer my social security number or something, I guess. But anyway, I think that's going to be fine. I mean, I guess that's probably what I'm telling myself. But I also am nervous about getting a letter in the mail from the Department of Transportation that says your license will be revoked on the 20th of February. So, yeah.
Huh. That's coming right up. At the time of this recording, it's not that far away.
Yeah, actually, when this comes out, will the 20th have already passed?
Technically?
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
Okay.
Will be the 20th.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we're crossing our fingers here.
Well, Kyle, good luck with that whole mess. It's time for Newsworthy. Throughout this season, we're sharing brief stories that resonate with me or Kyle. So, Kyle, what's your headline today?
Newsworthy from Esquire. 4 years after a crash left him paralyzed, BMX star Paul Basagodia enjoys riding more than ever. This guy got injured on a huge mountain bike jump. He was a huge name in the mountain bike pro circuit, and he got injured. He couldn't walk, and he entered the world of spinal cord injury. The reason for this article was that there was a movie. It came out in 2019. It's called Any One of Us. It's about Paul's journey with spinal cord injury and just everything that it requires in your head and also physically, like just thinking about things like, geez, how am I going to go to the bathroom? How am I going to get around? Everything. And also, he talks a lot about just the despair of, oh my gosh, this is my life now. And this is what I have to deal with. And why me and all that stuff. So I won't spoil Paul's story, but it's a really triumphant story. And he's riding bikes again. And I follow him on Instagram. And he's always posting reels of like these crazy jumps and cool music and just his life now, having seen a lot of the spinal cord injury community and trying to continue on with this life.
So obviously Paul is newsworthy. You can visit our show notes for links to his story.
Sean, one of the goals that we have as rare disease patients, as a rare disease community, is to constantly seek treatments and a cure and improve quality of life for our community. And we can easily see that clinicians and researchers and scientists and industry partners and advocacy organizations, they all have a role to play in this process. But what about you and me? What's our responsibility? I want to talk about the patient's role in the process. So, Sean, you and I have identified 4 responsibilities the patient has. This list is not exhaustive, but it's a great place to start.
Yeah, something tells me there's a whole lot more than 4.
You're right.
But we also recognize that everyone's level of involvement or their challenges, limitations, their own comfort, and so on is different. So we aren't saying if you aren't doing any of these 4, you're a failure. We're just encouraging you to engage in a way that you can. So we want to encourage you to find some responsibility for the journey that you and I happen to be on, whatever that might look like.
Overall, just the mindset that we do have a responsibility, that this is not going to happen just because we think it should. You know, we have this in our minds that we should have a treatment and a cure, and that's what we're heading for. But we're only going to get there if we don't remain silent, if we don't remain complacent, even if we don't know what to do all the time, right? Just the intention to be in the process, to make an impact and seek opportunities to make an impact. I think that's probably the overall most important thing. More specifically, I think one of our roles is to build community. You and I both know how powerful it was just to meet one other person who has FA. And if we can multiply that power by, I don't know, hundreds, right? Then every single person we know, every single person that's added to the FA community or to the rare disease community is so important. And so I think one of our roles is to build community and reach out to each other.
Absolutely. Not only is it powerful for you individually, but it also is powerful for somebody who doesn't yet know they're about to receive a diagnosis. When there's a community in place that can be easily tapped into, it changes perspective for somebody who's in the middle of the devastation and the grief and the initial pain that comes along with the diagnosis. And when you can get online or, whether it be the internet or social media or whatever, and find that you're not the only one.
Yeah.
Maybe you are one of a few that with your specific condition, but when you can see that other people are up against things just as challenging, maybe a slightly different disease state or symptom or whatever it may be, there's a renewal and an inspiration that, life can go on. Almost like you mentioned with the BMXer. It's a whole nother world, but there's still a world out there. A spinal cord injury isn't the end of the world. It just dramatically changes life.
Yeah, I agree. I love this quote from the trailer of the documentary that I talked about. If you sustained a spinal cord injury and you survived, you've got a second chance. You shouldn't waste it. I love that, kind of along the lines of what you're mentioning. Like, this is it. Something we learned from Joe Such I go back to. This is our life. We have one shot. Let's make the most of it, right?
You got to find your people. And the only way you're going to find your people is if patients like you and me and others are doing the work to cultivate that community.
Yep.
So I love that you point that out, because there is a sense of responsibility for those of us who have the emotional fortitude and the energy to do just that, foster friendships and community.
Yeah, and you talk about responsibility. We've benefited from community. And so it's our responsibility to pay it forward, to build community even more for the next person.
Yeah.
Another specific way that this manifests, that we can take part in our responsibility in the process, is participation in research. We've talked about it several times that we have a unique ability to be able to participate and fulfill this unique role that not very many people can. And it's our responsibility to act in the process, get involved. If we want to make this happen, if we want to make research progress, we have to be participants.
Yeah, for sure. And I've said it 100 times. I don't have billions to give or millions. I'm not a scientist. You're never going to see me looking through a magnifying glass or a petri dish or whatever. But what I can do is let you draw some blood and let you watch me walk and take notes on my heart and spine and my vision and whatever else I can do to help kind of track the progression, but also track what has an effect on that progression or that condition or that disease or whatever it may be. 100%. That is my contribution. And I do personally feel like there's a responsibility to be available for that. I know it's not for everybody, and it's not, some people wish they could do it, but they're excluded for medical reasons or, scientific reasons. And I get that. But for those of us who can do it and are willing, I feel like that is a responsibility to make yourself available, because the reality of it is, if there aren't patients to study, there is no movement toward a cure or treatment.
Well, and that participation is priceless. You talk about, you don't have millions or billions to give, but there's something even more valuable, I feel like, than dollars sometimes in its participation, because you're a rare patient and you can give that data that you really can't put a price on.
Yep. Agreed.
So talking about, okay, fine, there is a price for research, right? And being able to conduct a clinical trial or a basic research project. And for that, we have fundraisers and we raise money for research. And I think it's a responsibility of people in the community to get involved, do what they can to raise money, to advance research, and that's part of what we do.
Yeah, I would argue that there's more value in fundraising than just research.
Okay. Yeah.
I think, we talked about building community. Well, that takes money. That takes some infrastructure, that takes some organization, some energy. So when people fundraise, it helps the whole pot. Sure, maybe the majority is for research in your specific disease state, but there's still a need to foster that community, and it's not cheap. It's not free, that's for sure. So although I'm with you, I agree 100%. I would also argue fundraising is beneficial for more reasons than just research.
Well, and even more reasons than dollars and cents. I mean, just think about somebody like going to a fundraiser, going to an event for the first time. They were just diagnosed 3 weeks ago. And now they're going to an event so they can meet other people, shake hands, give hugs, get hugs, and build that community. So fundraising, I think, is a big part of building community, even beyond how much it costs or whatever.
And even beyond patients coming for the first time. You get random donors or random individuals that have never heard of this condition, or, they don't really know that organization. They don't really, quote unquote, care about that research, but a friend invites them to a dinner, and then they meet somebody, or they watch a video, or something compels them to get involved, whether that means writing a check or showing up to volunteer, or, being a patient themselves, what do they call it when you're a healthy individual,
able-bodied?
Involved in what do they call? Yeah, but I mean, in a trial, you've got to compare the disease
control.
Thank you. Maybe they're a part of the group of control subjects.
Yeah.
There are so many ways people can get involved, and a fundraising event might draw them in even further beyond the other things we've mentioned.
Yeah. For me, this brings up the concept of awareness. We all know how important awareness is and getting the word out there about our condition, about our cause. But I think about it a little bit differently. I feel like a lot of people think awareness drives fundraising. If more people know, it's going to bring in more dollars. And that doesn't always happen. I actually think about it differently. I think fundraising draws attention and drives awareness. Just in the whole awareness and the value of awareness discussion, that's kind of how I think of it. And, awareness versus fundraising. Another aspect that relates more to my overall thought at the very beginning about stepping up and just, not taking no for an answer, not remaining silent, I think is just participating in the everyday stuff. There's such an urge, I feel like to stay inside and be like, oh, whatever, I don't need this. Like, I can stay here where I'm comfortable. Well, this came up to me in my mind the other day because my wheelchair was damaged again by an airline. And we can talk about that in a little more depth in another conversation. But there's an urge when something like that happens to be like, no, I never want to fly again. And I think that's a mistake because just by flying, just by enduring the hardship of getting your stuff damaged and dealing with the system, I feel like that is a form of advocacy and that pushes the community forward.
Yeah, I would agree. I would also add that getting involved in everyday stuff helps, in a sense, normalize disability, which of course makes life easier for the disabled individual. When people in public see that even though it's difficult for me to get in and out of Starbucks, when they see me doing it without any bad attitude, then people see that, okay, it's different and it's harder and it takes a couple minutes longer, but it's still possible. So you begin to see, I think society begins to see that it's not the end of the world to be stuck or to, be disabled or to have a spinal cord injury or whatever it may be. In fact, this reminds me, I watched a TED Talk this past week from a guy named Dylan Alcott. Maybe I'm saying it wrong, but he's a Paralympian out of Australia. He's been in a wheelchair his entire life, but he's done some pretty cool stuff like wheelchair basketball, like I said, Paralympics in Beijing in 2008, and some other things. Anyway, in his talks, he's often promoting the need for normalizing disability, not because it's cool, but because it's not the end of the world. And any one of us could end up with a disability after a car accident, or maybe you have a kid that has a disease or a condition, or maybe you fall off a building, or there's 100 things that could go wrong. And too often we think, life is over if you can't talk, or life is over if you can't see, or if you're in a wheelchair. And Dylan, and I think what you mentioned with Paul, the hope is that we show people that you can still do some pretty cool stuff. You can still achieve, you can still accomplish things, you can still be a part of something pretty awesome despite those challenges. Yep. So I love Dylan's message, and I believe what you're saying for this point. When you advocate by participating in everyday stuff, you're helping the world see disability as just a way of life, not the end of the world.
Yep. And I think that helps the world understand our situation a little more. And that only helps when it comes to funding research and building community and participating and all of the things that it takes to move the needle on what we're trying to get done, which a lot of the times is a treatment and a cure for our disease. Participating and advocating for yourself by participating in regular stuff, I think that moves the needle on a lot of different fronts.
Agreed. Kyle, I so appreciate you bringing this topic up. And although we've only listed 4 responsibilities that we believe patients have in moving the needle towards treatments and cures and being involved in the entire process, we're just starting the conversation. We would love to hear more. Maybe there's 10 steps or 20 responsibilities, but we believe these 4 are a really good place to start. So if you're a patient today, or you know somebody in your life that's in the patient advocacy space, whether you're a caregiver or whatever it may be, we would love your input. Reach out, give us an email, share comments. What other responsibilities might there be for the patient involved in this journey towards treatments and cures in the rare disease world and in the disabled community.
All right, Sean, it's time for thank you notes. Both of us recognize the power of gratitude. And so I want to hear your thank you note for today.
I'm going to say thank you to a newer hire or associate at Nugget. His name is Noah, and I haven't had him in any of my sessions, so I've only seen him in the hallways, right? Introduced myself a couple weeks ago, and beyond that, we haven't really talked or worked together. And the other day, he came into the office, and I was the first one, available to him, and he asked for help finding something. So I walked over to a different area of the office to show him, and at that time, he kind of pointed out, he's like, Sean, you seem to walk with the limp. May I ask why? And he was, I believe, just an inquisitive, 20-something-year-old mind. So I'm like, oh, I have this condition. And he just kept asking questions. Mm-hmm. And it was, I believe, from a place of curiosity. Yeah. And in my opinion, that was the healthiest way to go about it. And I was just so impressed that it stuck out to me. Because, most people, they're either going to say, oh, something's wrong, don't talk about it. There's this unspoken negative air, like, oh, you can't bring it up. Yeah. Or they're judgmental, right. And they're like, what the heck's wrong? There's two extremes typically. And I just appreciated that he was just curious. And in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with asking. Yeah. That doesn't mean the individual has to answer. Right. But how else are we going to inform or raise awareness or help people understand what you're up against? That part of the responsibility is sharing what we're up against. So I appreciated that specific conversation and the way he approached it. So thank you, Noah.
That's awesome. My thank you note goes out to Mike and Diane Bryant. And Sean, that's the names of my parents.
Hey.
They have sent me a box of Factor 75 meal kits for a few weeks now, and it has been a game changer to just get home and know there's something to eat. These Factor meals, you pop it in the microwave, 2 minutes, and they're delicious and they're real. Thank you to Factor, but more importantly, thank you to Micah and Diane Bryant for helping me out with those meals so I can come home and get my work done.
Mike and Diane, otherwise known as Mom and Dad.
Yeah, that's correct.
Well, of course, thank you for listening today. We appreciate you being here and being a part of our community and our tribe, and of course, listening to our show. We'd encourage you to visit our website at twodisableddudes.com, where you can find our show notes for this episode with links to some of the things we talked about today. If you are enjoying the show, please rate and review and share it with a friend. You can rate us on Apple Podcasts or whatever platform you use. Any review is fine. And of course, you can subscribe so you never miss an episode. We look forward to talking at you again next week. Until then, keep living with urgency.
Thank you for listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. This show is possible with your support. Visit twodisableddudes.com to stay connected.
Find us on Facebook and Instagram. And be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast player.